The system isn't built to make you win. It's built to break you. But if you understand this one psychological trick, you'll not only pass every exam, you'll dominate them like a man who knows the game is rigged and still wins. Let me tell you why most men fail their exams before they even start. It's not intelligence. It's not work ethic. It's psychological warfare, and you're showing up unarmed. The education system was designed to identify and sort the useful from the useless. Today, I'm going to show you how to weaponize your mind and manipulate that system instead of letting it manipulate you. The average student approaches exams like a victim approaches execution, powerless, hoping for mercy. That ends today. What I'm about to share isn't found in study guides or tutoring sessions. This is the dark psychology of exam domination, the mindset and tactical approach that transformed me from a struggling C student to someone who hasn't scored below 95% in 5 years. Most exam tips focus on memorization techniques, study schedules, and note-taking methods. That's surface-level garbage that ignores the psychological battlefield where exams are actually won or lost. The harsh truth is this. Academic performance is less about what you know and more about psychological positioning, strategic manipulation, and mental warfare. My approach isn't about working harder. It's about understanding the game at a level your competitors never will. About recognizing that exams aren't tests of knowledge. They're tests of psychological dominance. Stay with me for the next few minutes, and I'll show you exactly how to weaponize your mind to destroy any exam put in front of you. First, you need to understand the battlefield. Exams aren't designed to test your knowledge. They're designed to test your ability to perform under specific psychological conditions. Think about it. Why do they put time limits on exams? Why do they create artificial pressure? Why do they force you into uncomfortable environments with specific rules? Because they're testing your psychological resilience, not just your information retention. Let me tell you about Jake. Brilliant guy. Could explain complex concepts perfectly in study groups. Knew the material better than anyone. But when exam time came, he'd freeze. Panic. Second-guess himself. He'd leave knowing he failed despite understanding everything. Meanwhile, there was Michael. Average intelligence at best. But he walked into every exam with absolute certainty. With a psychological approach that made the test bend to his will instead of the other way around. He consistently outscored everyone, including Jake. The difference? Jake saw the exam as a threat. Michael saw it as a game with specific rules that could be manipulated if you understood the psychology behind them. Here's dark truth number 1. Examiners don't really care about your depth of knowledge. They care about your ability to give them what they want in the exact way they want it. This isn't about learning. It's about performance, about understanding the psychological profile of the perfect exam taker and becoming that person for the required time period. I remember the exact moment this clicked for me. I was struggling in organic chemistry, studying 30-plus hours a week and barely passing. Meanwhile, this guy who barely showed up to class was acing every exam. One day, I cornered him and demanded to know his secret. What he told me changed everything. I don't waste time trying to understand everything. I study the professor, not just the subject. That's when I realized I was playing the wrong game entirely. The most powerful psychological weapon in exam domination is strategic certainty. Not hope, not wishful thinking. Absolute, unshakable certainty in your approach. Here's how you develop it. First, reverse engineer the test. Most students study the subject. The elite study the test maker. Every professor, teacher, or examiner has patterns, preferences, pet topics, psychological tells that reveal what they value. I developed a system I call the examiner profile. For every class, I create a detailed psychological profile of the person creating the exam. What topics do they emphasize in lectures? What questions get them excited? What kind of students do they praise? What format do they prefer for answers? Do they value creativity or strict adherence to their methods? This isn't just about predicting questions. It's about understanding the psychological biases that will determine how your answers are judged. In my economics class, I noticed the professor would get animated when discussing certain theories, but remain neutral on others. When exam time came, I emphasized those theories in my answers, even for questions that didn't directly ask for them. Result? Perfect score. Second psychological tactic. Controlled overconfidence. Most students enter exams with fear, with hope, with prayers, weak psychological positions that guarantee underperformance. Before every exam, I spend 20 minutes in what I call dominance programming. I visualize not just doing well, but dominating the test, owning it, making it submit to me rather than the other way around. This isn't just motivation. This is psychological positioning. Your brain performs based on your expectations. Program certainty, and your recall improves. Your focus sharpens. Your decision-making speeds up. I've watched countless intelligent students cripple themselves with thoughts like, I just hope I pass, or I'll be happy with AB. That's psychological surrender before the battle even begins. Third strategy, exploiting psychological blind spots. Every evaluation system has built-in biases and shortcuts. Examiners aren't perfectly objective machines. They're humans with psychological tendencies you can predict and exploit. For example, most graders decide on the general quality of your answer within the first few sentences. This is called the primacy effect, a cognitive bias where first impressions disproportionately shape overall perception. Knowing this, I front-load my answers with my strongest points, most impressive terminology, and clearest frameworks, even if the full solution comes later. This creates a psychological halo effect that colors how the rest of my answer is perceived. These aren't tricks. This is understanding human psychology and using it to your advantage. Let me tell you a story. There was a time I had 10 days before a high-stakes exam. I was broken, and brutally behind in my syllabus. Everyone else had finished their prep. I had barely started. Panic attacked me like a rabid dog. My hands would sweat. My chest would tighten. My brain felt like a broken machine. But then something snapped. I stopped asking, how will I complete the syllabus? And I asked myself, how can I beat the system? That's when I created a mental hack I now call the assassin's focus. Let me explain. Picture this. An assassin doesn't try to kill everyone. He doesn't chase every enemy. He has one target, one mission, one bullet. Exams are the same. If you want full marks, don't study everything. Don't chase perfection. Don't be a coward disguised as a scholar. Instead, become an assassin. Step 1. Identify the weak points of the exam. Every exam is a pattern, a system, an algorithm. Study the past papers like you're studying a target's habits. What questions repeat? What chapters dominate? What sections are ignored? Step 2. Build a war map. Make a list. Prioritize topics into high yield, must kill. Medium yield, optional. Low yield, avoid unless suicidal. Step 3. Attack with isolation. Lock yourself away. No social media. No music. No notifications. Just silence and repetition. Repetition is underrated. It's not sexy, but it's what makes a man lethal. Step 4. Use the mirror method. Every night, stare into your mirror and recite out loud what you learned. If you can't teach it, you don't know it. Your brain learns through emotion and sound. Make it real. Now let's get tactical. Here's exactly how I execute this strategy. First, the 72-hour psychological ramp-up. 3 days before any exam, I begin a specific protocol that has nothing to do with last-minute studying. Instead, it's about psychological conditioning. Day 3, I eliminate all negative language about the exam. No, I'm worried about. This will be difficult, or I hope I do well. I replace these with statements of certainty. I will dominate this exam. This is my territory. These questions exist to showcase my mastery. Day 2, I review only my strengths, not my weaknesses. Psychological research shows that focusing on weaknesses before performance creates doubt, while reviewing strengths builds certainty. Day 1, I visualize the specific environment, imagine potential challenges, and mentally rehearse overcoming them with ease. This prevents the psychological shock that derails most students when they encounter unexpected questions. Second tactical approach, the first 5 minutes protocol. The opening minutes of any exam set the psychological tone for your entire performance. Most students waste this critical window scanning the test in panic, already imagining failure. Instead, here's my exact process. Minute 1, I don't look at any questions. Instead, I close my eyes and take 3 deep breaths while mentally triggering what psychologists call a peak state, a condition of optimal cognitive function. Minutes 2 to 3, I scan the entire test not to answer it, but to classify questions into 3 categories: guaranteed points, strategic opportunities, and potential traps. Minutes 4 to 5. I create a precise attack plan, determining the exact order I'll answer questions based not on the test layout, but on psychological momentum. Starting with moderate questions I can definitely answer correctly, then using that confidence to tackle harder ones. This approach prevents the psychological spiraling that happens when students start with difficult questions and begin doubting themselves. Third tactical element, the authority position. Most students write answers from a position of seeking approval. Their language is tentative, hedging, uncertain. This subconsciously signals to examiners that the student lacks confidence in their knowledge. I do the opposite. I write from a position of authority, not arrogance, but confident expertise. This subtle psychological shift manifests in language choices that subconsciously influence how examiners perceive your competence. Instead of "this might be because," I write "this occurs because." Instead of "I think the answer is," I write "the answer is clearly." Instead of "some scholars suggest," I write "scholars have established." This psychological positioning makes graders less likely to search for flaws in your answers. They unconsciously respond to the authority in your presentation. A student in my study group tried this approach without changing his actual knowledge level. His grades jumped 23% in a single term. Fourth, the psychological close. The last part of your answer is disproportionately important due to the recency effect in cognitive processing. Most students peter out at the end, their conclusions weak and forgettable. I structure every answer to build toward a powerful close, a definitive statement that showcases confidence and leaves no room for doubt. This creates a psychological bookend alongside my strong opening, forming a frame that enhances everything in between. Let me be clear about something. This approach isn't about gaming the system without knowledge. You still need competence. But competence without psychological strategy is like having expensive weapons you don't know how to fire. I've seen brilliant students fail again and again because they refuse to acknowledge the psychological reality of exams. Because their egos are too fragile to admit that performance requires more than just knowing facts. The system doesn't reward the most knowledgeable. It rewards those who understand how the game is played and have the psychological tools to play it at the highest level. Here's what this looks like in practice. Last year, I had a mathematics final that was notorious for its difficulty. The class average had been below 60% for 5 straight years. While other students panic-studied formulas until the last minute, I spent the final day doing something completely different. I reviewed past exams not for content, but for patterns. I analyzed a professor's research papers to understand his core interests. I identified the specific language he used to describe elegant solutions. I walked into that exam with something more powerful than knowledge. I walked in with psychological certainty and a strategic understanding of exactly what would impress this specific evaluator. The result? 98% on an exam where the second highest score was 82%. Now, here's your action plan to implement this approach immediately. Step 1. For your next exam, create an examiner profile. Document everything you can about their preferences, biases, interests, and evaluation patterns. This isn't studying the subject, it's studying the judge. Step 2. Implement the 72-hour psychological ramp-up. No negative language. Focus on strengths. Mental rehearsal of success. Step 3. Practice writing answers from a position of authority rather than submission. Record yourself explaining concepts and eliminate all tentative language. Step 4. Begin building a mental database of psychological leverage points in your academic environment. Which professors respond to confidence? Which ones prefer humility? Which administrators can provide advantages if approached correctly? Remember this. Every exam is testing your psychology more than your knowledge. The students who understand this rule the academic world. The ones who don't spend their lives wondering why they keep underperforming despite knowing the material. The most important psychological weapon you possess is the understanding that while others are playing the game, you can position yourself as the one who controls the game. Your competition will continue bringing knowledge to a psychological battle. You now know better. The question is, will you use this understanding, or will your ego convince you that pure knowledge should be enough? The choice is yours. But from where I stand, I see no pride in failing with integrity when you could dominate with strategy. Most men prepare like it's a hobby, not a war. They scroll till their dopamine is drained. They study with YouTube open. They panic when they see others winning. And then they cry on the result day like life betrayed them. Exams are not about books. They're about identity. Who are you when no one is watching? Do you wake up and grind because you fear mediocrity? Or do you sleep in, blame the system, and pray for luck? You don't get full marks by chance. You get full marks by turning your brain into a weapon.